So, Kirstie, blue tongue screen printing.
Yep.
You're the competition, by the way.
Well,
For the sake of the click, I'm going to call you the competition, but
All right.
I'm
we do different things. But
we
yeah,
do very different things, which
Yeah.
is interesting. I think from the outside point of view, it's like, I don't know. I have people ask me all the time, "Do you do screen printing?" And I no, I don't. I have no idea. It's literally like an art form compared to what I do.
Yep.
I think anyway, because I've tried screen printing and I couldn't do it.
Yep.
You know, so you're a lecturer at TAFE.
Yep.
And you told me the other day you teach so many different mediums, which was just mind blowing to me because I just didn't have any information about you. I knew you're a screen printer. You help me out when I need blank tees on occasion.
Yep.
But when it comes to like your artistic knowledge, that sort of like took me by surprise when you told me. So, how did this come about?
How did it come about, like my artistic background? So probably had a very inspirational teacher at school, and actually in year 9 got me into screen printing, and that was probably when I really started doing that side of things.
Yep.
But I left school and went to TAFE, so that's where I started. Pretty much did my Certificate 3. Well, back then it was a preliminary certificate.
Yep.
But Certificate 3 in visual arts and art and design it was.
Yep.
Then the Certificate 4. Then I did a fashion and textiles diploma at Perth Central.
Okay.
And from there, after I finished, I went out and I did work experience as a screen printer. And that kind of, started me off.
So you went from screen printing
Yep.
to fashion and textiles.
Mm-hmm.
Fashion and textiles, which then led to doing work experience as a screen printer.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. If I find that if I write it down, I can retain the information a bit better.
Yep.
Continue, please.
So then I went to Kalgoorlie, and so I went out into industry and I did some screen printing in industry. I ended up in Kalgoorlie doing screen printing in Kalgoorlie as well for a while, but didn't like Kalgoorlie much.
Yeah.
So then I moved back to Bridgetown where I did my teenage years, and I ended up packing cauliflowers and apples and working behind the bar.
Cool.
And then I saw an ad in the paper for lecturing at Edith Cowan University, so which was in Bunbury. So I applied for that job. I ended up getting that job.
Yep.
And then I was lecturing at Edith Cowan for about 13 years in visual arts. And then at the same time, I also ended up managing Jackson's Drawing Supplies for about 9 years as well.
Wow. Okay.
So, I've been around in lots of different art areas.
Yep.
So from there, after I sort of finished up, that's right, then I had my children. So I had my children, started up blue tongue screen printing because I wanted to have something that I could do from home when I had my kids. Then I unfortunately became a sole parent. So then I, from there, went back to lecturing at Edith Cowan for a little while.
Yep.
I think it was about 3 years. Then I got offered a position at TAFE. And so started lecturing at TAFE. Then I got offered a job at Bunbury Catholic College as well as an art technician. So I ended up working at TAFE and Catholic College at the same time for about 8 years.
Wow. What period were you at BCC?
So I started in 2016.
Okay.
And then I finished up there a couple of years ago, and then I moved to full-time lecturing at TAFE.
Yep.
So that's pretty much, my art journey. Lots of different art jobs in the meantime in that. But, started blue tongue screen printing 22 years ago, all up. And then that's kind of become a bit of a monster on top of my full-time job.
Yeah. So, all right, we have so much to cover. So blue tongue is 22 years old.
Yep.
Okay. Through lecturing, teaching, and then also managing Jackson's, you have had a touch point with probably like 80% of the artists as a general term.
Absolutely.
In Bunbury.
and all of the southwest.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was a period of time where back then we used to call it the survey at the art gallery, and they used to have probably 1,000 people turn up for opening night, and I nearly knew all of them.
Wow.
So a little bit different these days,
Yeah.
but back then, because Jackson's especially, all of the artists right down to sort of Northcliffe all came to, Bunbury Jackson's or Bustleton.
Yep.
But, yeah, generally I knew them all. So it was a quite, a good job to have.
Interesting. So you're like a through line for people's, maybe I wouldn't say like finding art, but once I've found art, then building their character within it. You're sort of like this continuous like touch point for people along their artistic journey almost, would you say?
Yeah. I think nowadays, though, I have less connection with all of the artists that are further down south.
Right.
I do try and get to exhibition openings, and obviously I've still got that strong connection that I had originally. But there's lots of new people coming through. So I try and get out and, especially as at TAFE, I'm an advanced industry lecturer. So it basically means I need to connect with industry.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow. So what's first thing, do you have heaps of art at home? Have you collected art over the years?
Yes.
Yeah. And are you at a point now where you have too much art, I'm guessing?
I have a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot. I actually also used to work for Linda Scrollis and Russell Sheridan. And I used to one of the things I used to do was go and help them out, as a lackey for them, and help them make frames, or I'd clean their house or do all sorts of things for them in exchange for artwork.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's a diehard art fan, by the way.
Yeah. So I had gone out to work for them for about 3 weeks because I really wanted one of Linda's paintings, and couldn't justify spending that much because being a broke student myself or something at the time.
Yeah.
And Linda said, well, come and help me out around the house and we'll do a swap. And I said, oh, fantastic. So went out and I stayed 4 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it was
What's that moment like when you're getting that opportunity, that exchange, and you're like, I have something of offer, something of value, and you have something that's of value?
I think in that situation, I just loved being around them. It was fantastic because I ended up every time I had an exhibition, I'd say, I'll have that piece now, I'll have that piece, you know. But for me, it was also just being around that creativity. Like they were, amazing artists to be around. They also had a carpenter that worked for them that made frames and helped them with the creative furniture and all the things that they did out at their place.
Yep.
And he became my best friend and ended up moving in with me.
Wow.
And he ended up living with myself and my husband for about 6 years. So,
Really?
I gained a lot through working with them.
Yep.
But they're just incredible people to be around. So
sounds like they're like a real sort of pinnacle relationship then of your artistic journey then.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Do you think, okay, so what's your, like, hands down, what's your favourite medium of art as it stands right now?
That's a hard one, actually, because I think I started out with textiles, so obviously screen printing, but dyeing fabric, batik, all of that kind of thing. Anything to do with fabric was my original.
What's batik?
Batik is where you're using wax on fabric.
Okay.
So you're laying down hot wax as a design onto fabric, and then you're putting the fabric into dye baths and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So,
where would you experience something like that in day-to-day life? Like, is this something that you wear, or is this something that you...
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Indonesians do it a lot. In
Okay.
fact, I went over there and I did I think it was 2 years ago, I went over and did a workshop in Ubud in Bali, where we did batik and indigo dyeing and, so it's clothing or bedding, anything, anything to do with fabric. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So the passion started with textiles. Did it move into more visual, or?
Yeah, so it's moved probably more into painting and printmaking.
Yep.
I really like printmaking, but I do want to start moving towards painting myself. I just don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, okay.
So, and a lot of my creative energy goes into my students, I find a lot as well.
Yep.
But because I lecture full time and I run a business, and I have 2 children and I live on an acre.
Yeah. You're busy.
I don't have a lot of time for my own artwork. So I kind of see that, that might be another 5 years down the track when I might allow myself a bit of time to do my own art.
Okay. All right, guys, let's take a little break. If you're looking for some financial advice that is actually personal to your situation, is practical to your life, and is built around the goals that you and your family have set, you're going to want to talk to the team at Kumbana Financial. They help individuals and families in the Southwest with superannuation, investments, retirement planning, and personal insurance. Now, I've personally dealt with Kumbana Financial and found the results to be very satisfactory. I find that it's handy having someone on your team in the financial part of your life. So, if you're keen to get some professional advice around your financial goals, get in touch with the team at Kumbana Financial today to book your free initial chat. You can find their contact information in the description below, or you can jump on www.kumbanafinancial.com.au. And don't forget to tell them that Jake from the Black Ink podcast sent you. And now, back to the podcast.
It is on the agenda.
Yeah. And also, it probably... Well, as someone who I'm a busy person. I'm not a parent yet. We're 14 weeks today, so we're on the way.
Ooh,
very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Try and get me to get to a podcast without bringing it up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm so enamored with the idea of becoming a girl dad very soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like, having a business and, I train for things and do all the rest, it's like I do have these like creative what would you call it, aspirations, where it's like I'd love to have a week to sink into just like getting into like even like, I know it's not as fun creatively, I guess, to like sort of visualize, but even like creating digital systems. Like I really love the idea of just learning a complete new skill in that creative sort of perspective, rather than looking at it as like, oh, I've got to figure out how to bloody do this thing for my business. It's like I see things even like that where it's like I'd love to sink my teeth into it. And I think that is sort of similar probably to what you're saying about maybe painting, in that what the steps you have to do to learn and get better at it, because obviously you teach them in a way, but it's the actual time application and putting yourself through those steps and learning all the nuances as you go. Do you reckon that would be?
I think also too, like I don't have a lot of patience. I move pretty quickly.
Okay.
And so if I start a painting, painting's not something you whip up in the afternoon. Well, it depends on, what you are painting.
Yeah.
But if I start something, go, I want to be creative today, the next day I'm onto something else. And then a week later, it's like 3 years later, I've got a painting that I started and I haven't got around to it and I've kind of lost interest in it.
Yeah.
So I really need the time just to focus on that and see it through. And that's what I don't have. I don't have time.
Interesting. So talk to me about the like creative spark where you go, like you sort of maybe picture what an end result might be, or what the feeling might be during the creative process of actually making that thing. How do you think that is like a striking thing, or do you think that's something that can be sort of cultivated?
Well, that's what I teach at TAFE. It's like you need to be able to get inspiration from somewhere. So you would do some artist research. You'd look around at where you can get ideas for pattern, or look at how artists do certain techniques. So a lot of what we do is the research first.
Yeah.
The building of ideas, the brainstorming of ideas, and then sort of building those concepts till you get to a point where you're ready to start something. I quite often will say to a student, they'll come in and they'll go, this is the landscape, this is what I want to paint. And I'm like, well, and then they'll paint it and I'll go, well, you could already do that before you came in. So it's about taking yourself out of your comfort zone and trying some different things. You might absolutely hate it, or you might find it's your new passion. I had a student at uni years ago, and she was doing education. She's a mature ager. She was doing education at Edith Cowan University, and she did one of my drawing classes because up there you can do an elective in another area.
Oh,
so
cool.
she came and did a drawing class, and she went, bugger teaching. I think I want to be an artist. So she swapped courses into visual arts, and then second semester I think she did my printmaking class, and I'll never forget it because she came up to me and she said, I'm a printmaker. That's what I am.
Wow.
Like I've figured it out. And that's stepping outside your comfort zone and actually trying something different, and then figuring out, actually, this is my thing.
Yeah.
And since then, she's gone on to Spain and done workshops, and she's now got this is Mel Lamana. She's now got a studio down in Dunsborough, and she's now doing really well as a printmaker. She's won awards, and she does painting as well. But that's really lovely that you can step outside your comfort zone or just try something new and then figure out, oh, this is actually my thing. But as far as like, I remember one of my lecturers back when I was at college, in Perth it was, I think, I did really well in my textile units. I got all A's, and I was so proud. I was like, oh, great. And she was like, yeah, woohoo, 3 A's. I went, oh, what does that mean? Like, and she said, well, Kirstie, you come in, you've got your idea, and then you develop it. And that's it. And, and you already know what the piece is going to look like before you've even started. There's no journey. So she said, I'm going to give you a project, just you, next term, that's going to throw you out of your comfort zone. So she gave me a 2 metre by 2 metre piece of canvas, and she said, now I want you to rip it up, stitch it back together, throw things at it, draw on it. I want you to have no idea. I said, I don't care what it looks like at the end. Yeah. But I want you to have no idea where this is going to go. Wow. And that was a learning point for me, because I produced something that I could have never dreamed up in my wildest dreams, So it was a really good let go and try things. Yeah, that almost made me want to tear up listening to that. That's crazy, because I think metaphorically, you're giving that piece life, right? Yeah. You're giving it like the curveballs of what life is, and it's like you're not meant to know what's coming next. That's the whole point of it, right? Yep. And there's nothing more beautiful than, especially if you're in a position of your life where you can appreciate the goods and the bads, where you go like, I never knew what tomorrow was going to be, but I got here and I'm bloody stoked with it, right? And that is like I don't know, what do you call it? It's I don't know. I never saw myself as creative, like ever. Yeah. I never thought I was a creator. I never thought anything I did was creative, because when I was young, I couldn't draw and I couldn't paint like anybody can, because they don't practice it, right? Yeah. And then through the journey of like building a business, and I'm in somewhat of a creative space with creating something from nothing. I get a blank canvas, a shirt, and I put someone's design on it. There's sizing, there's contrast, fill in all the gaps. And after a certain amount of time, I'm like, oh, I'm a creator. I'm actually sort of creative. People come to me for my creative spirit or capacity to create good uniforms and clothes for them. And through that, you start to realize like, oh, I think all of life might be art. Yeah, possibly. It might be art, you know, and like even relationships and communication and the whole lot is actually like a conversation. We don't know where this is going to go. When we sat down, we had no idea what the first thought was going to be and what the first conversation was going to be and how it's going to go off on tangents and all these, but you let the next unpredictable thing happen and respond to it, right? Which in essence is what you're talking about with this 2 metre by 2 metre canvas. Yeah. Rip it up, stitch it together. See what happens. What happens? Chuck it in the dirt, bring it back, clean it, put some, Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing. So what was your takeaway from that at the time compared to now, do you think? Well, it was a huge turning point for me, and many of my students have had me repeat that same thing, because I have had some students produce some amazing work, but I'm like, as I said, you could produce that before you came here. Yeah. So the idea is, at TAFE, we give students a lot of different projects, and you'll hear some people go, I don't want to do this. I don't like this. Perfect. I'm not into this. I in particular, I had a mature age 70-year-old dental technician who came back to TAFE to learn art, and I got her doing an abstract piece. I hate abstract. I don't want to do abstract. Yeah. Why are you making us do abstract? She was funny. She used to, have a go all the time. And I said, because taking you out of comfort zone, try something new. Anyway, maybe, I don't know, a year or two later, I'm following her on Facebook. And I went, Teresa, is that an abstract? And she sort of made a laugh and went, oh, it might be. And I was like, so, if we try different things, we might find we don't like it, but we also might find that it's our new thing that we want to do. So I've had a few students and I say to them, don't forget, it's all about research, play, experimentation, trying different techniques, trying different materials, because that's going to develop into something that could just, in essence, be just you. Yeah. So that's the learning.
is there some sort of like the thing that's sort of like coming through my mind as you say that, is there like a self-reflection through what you're doing onto yourself? Because the correlation between the example of homegirl who was an educator and then moved into like, oh, this is what I am. I didn't realize this, what I was until I did this. It's through that external physical doing something that you find that like identifying factor of it within yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a what shines forward shines backwards. I feel like a lot of people in life coincidentally, like they leave school, they don't go to university, maybe they get a job over here and then they go from casual to part-time to full-time, then they're there for 10 years, then they've got a partner and then they've got kids and then that's their life.
Yeah.
And then they look at people who are like really passionate about whatever they do and they're like, I want a bit of that.
That's exactly where I am at the moment.
Interesting.
Because I do find, I mean, I've been lecturing now for 26 years, I think it is, and I do get a lot out of that. And I always have got a lot out of teaching. And some of my students a lot of my students I'm still in contact with. Yeah. I see where they have gone. You know, I did a post last year for TAFE where it was where are they now? You know, okay. And so, you know, I have one student in Perth who is now a project officer for Archwa, which is the Aboriginal, is it Community Hub WA? And she flies all over the state doing projects for Indigenous art communities. I have got one that's gone, actually a couple that's gone into tattooing. Apprenticeships as well. Standard. So and I do have a lot of young ones that start. They go, oh well, you know. I said it's all learning. Like you're learning your drawing skills. You're learning explore the use of colour. You know, all those things. Time management, turning up. You know, all those things that you have to do when you are a student. Yeah. Some gone on to university to further their education. Yeah. Working at the art gallery, curating, lots of different areas. Interesting. That they go into. So I find, yes, that is my passion still. Yeah. But there is a little bit of an inkling that, you know, my kids are almost getting to the age where they're almost self-sufficient now. Yeah. And it's just me, and like, what does that mean now? Like, what can I do for myself now?
Do you think that like an artistic expression is the answer to that, or is there maybe something that?
No, I do because I just feel like I've given a lot of my creative energy to a lot of other people, and I haven't given much to myself. Interesting. Mainly because of time, I think, but I do want to get to that point at some point. Yeah. So.
Just pull that microphone a little bit closer again. That's all my second mind is thinking. Yep. All right, so obviously being a parent, you have 2 kids?
Yes.
Now, being a parent's obviously a massive part of like personal identity. It's a huge time thing. Also, it's a huge emotional connection to something outside of yourself in this life, which I'm starting to experience for the first time. Yep. How does being a mother as well as a teacher, how do those 2 things play alongside each other? Do you find that you have a deeper connection with your students because you are a mother?
Actually, that's a really interesting question.
Okay.
Because, you do find that you are caring about that student, and especially I think, you know, students with learning difficulties as well, where you also want to support them in that process. But, you know, I get students that come in, they're like, oh, you know, I broke up with my boyfriend or, you know, or this is going on in my life right now. And so I do find there is sometimes a bit of a holistic approach in art where it's a supportive environment, not just creativity, but for that stepping out of school. Yeah. You know, into that next phase of life. So I do feel that being a parent, you can't help but, you know, translate that sometimes to the students as well. But I also find that when I have mature ages in the class, that they often become the mother hens to the younger students as well.
Okay. What's the ratio like of student age
really,
students to?
It really changes, but at the moment I do have a lot of under 18s because, you know, a lot of kids don't want to be at school these days, so they're looking at other options. And TAFE is a great option for that, especially, and I even have VETA students, which are the students that actually are still at school. Yep. So on the Thursday and Fridays, I run a Cert 3, a Cert 2 and a Cert 3 in visual arts, and they're for kids that are actually still at school, and they come out of school 2 days a week to come and do the course at TAFE. And there's lots of different VETIS programs at TAFE for that. So, you could come out and do, retail cosmetics or, hairdressing or, lots of different areas that the VETIS offer. And it's a great thing because if you're still at school, by the time you leave school, you're leaving school with a certificate.
Yeah.
So if you were doing, say, childcare or education support or something like that, you could technically just walk out of school with a certificate and walk into a job.
And a well-paying job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a really good option for young people.
Yep.
Plus also, if you end up with a Cert 4, sometimes that's a pathway to uni.
Yep.
So one is your ATAR where you're getting your score to get into uni, or if you have a certificate and a good mark in English, it's another in. So there's lots of different pathways for students these days compared to when I was at school.
Man, I wish they had a nice, well-pictured diagram for learning pathways when I was at school. I threw away my education. I was, my parents put me through private education until I was recommended that I leave BCC for my religious beliefs, which I've now actually, funnily enough, turned back on, and I'm fairly religious as it turns out. And I then went to Newton Moore and Bunbury High and then left to become a professional athlete and then quit that a year later. So it's I now look back and I'm like, there was so many great options that even if I just, they say, just do a trade, get 4 years behind you, get a trade, do whatever you want after that. That way you've got something to fall back on. And the idea of doing something artistic when I was younger, again, didn't perceive myself as a creative person, so I don't want to waste their time or my time.
I'm going to throw something in there because that's something that comes up for me a lot, is that I was told by my mum, don't go into art because you'll never get a job. And I was quite rebellious as a child, so I rebelled against that. I left home quite young, and I think I was 17 when I left home. Yep. And since that point, I've never not been employed in an art area.
Yeah.
I do say this to my students, and I do like to say it to parents. Yes, it's hard to get a job in art, but if you're focused and you want a job, they are there. You've just got to go out and look for them. And I will say this to my students, go out and pick an area you want to do. Say you want to work in an art gallery or you want to work in an art shop. Go out and offer some voluntary time in that area.
Amen.
Because two things. One is you're going to get some experience, and you're also going to see if you actually want a job in that area.
Yeah.
But two, 9 times out of 10, you'll probably end up with a job.
Yeah.
Or they'll point you in a direction because, you
show some initiative.
Yeah. So when I left college, I got 2 weeks work experience as a screen printer. At the end of the 2 weeks, they paid me and offered me a full-time job. Yep. And then within 3 months, I was managing the place.
Wow.
So you've just got to put yourself in those situations and not wait for them necessarily to come to you.
Agree.
So, to say you won't get a job in art, they're out there. It'd be nice if we had more funding for art. It's so important. People don't realise how important it is until, there's not enough out there. But I'm not just talking about, the visual arts, also creative, creative writing and poetry and music and all the other things that are so important in our lives, and yet they get the least funding.
Isn't there this is probably not a question you're going to have the answer to, but I think there's a connection between the degradation or downfall of empires and civilizations with the downfall of art. It tracks alongside, and typically when tyranny is evident, it's the first thing to go is really crazy art, and then moderate art, and then art at all, and then being able to express yourself. It's as society crumbles, typically art is a step before it. So it's when you don't encourage people to be creative, that's when societies start to. I might be completely making this up, but I've got something that sits in the back of my mind there that's I'm pretty sure there's something that goes on that you take people's art away, you take people's right away, you take people's freedom of expression away. Art is always step number one.
Yeah, possibly.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Well, it's creative thinking. It's thinking outside the box, creative thinking is important in every job.
Yeah.
So
So what's the connection between critical thinking and being able to translate that process you're talking about of like challenging yourself artistically?
Ooh, critical thinking. I mean, there's that emotional connection that we have when we're, trying to explore an area or explain an area or communicate something. Critical thinking, I'm not sure how to answer that actually.
Do you have anything that's coming to mind, or is it just not a is there not a through line there between those two things?
I think there is, but it's so broad. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think do you know how coding works basically?
No.
It's okay, so if you sort of base every decision as a tree branch, like I can cross the road, I can turn left or right, or go straight.
Yep.
If I turn left, I can then keep going up there, or I can turn left again, or I can stop and turn around. So it's like very sort of like linear, and there's not very many options.
Yep.
The way I see creativity is like in that 2D world of options, you then like add that third perspective of like, all right, now we can go up and down. And it's like adding like, almost like on a road, you can only go where the road goes, but
Yep.
in the water and in the air, if you're a bird or a fish, you can sort of go any direction you want.
Yep.
And it's like critical thinking for me is the 2D, and then where the creativity layers over the top of that is adding in the third dimension of like, all right, now we can do anything we want. And if we want to get, what do you call it? What is it when you have, if you want to get like conspiracy theorist, it's like, I feel like society is being turned into a 2D thought pattern where we're actually made to be like almost 4D. We're meant to be like 3D with a spiritual element added on top of that. And I think maybe what the answer I was looking for, or maybe what the answer is to me, where critical thinking ties into artistic expression, is almost like reminding humans, especially young humans, that it's not 2D, it is 3D. And like you said, if you want to go and get a job in a creative space, if you want to get a job anywhere, go to the place where you would absolutely love to work and just talk to them. Hey, I know you don't have any positions open. Can I just sweep the floor? Can I just be around? Can I talk to you for 10 minutes? Can I find out what's going on? I'm fascinated by this place. Because as a business owner, I know if someone showed that much interest in my business, I'd be like, let me pay you. Sit down. Let me get you a chair.
Or also, look at some other area and go, we can't offer you a job because we don't have one. But, John Smith down the road, he's got something coming up, or, it's actually networking. Which is really important.
For sure.
But yeah, getting back to sort of like, I guess, critical thinking, some of the things that we do at TAFE to get the students actually thinking, we do brainstorming, word association, mind mapping, storyboarding, all these sorts of things to start to generate those different ways of thinking about things. And then that might lead to also looking at, different techniques that they use, or, looking at different artists and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go right back to the start. We were talking about what's your favourite medium art. What's your favourite type of art that you like to experience?
A painting.
Painting?
Oh, it's so hard. I'm actually just about to start a sculptural unit when I was at Bunbury Catholic College, I helped out a lot with the sculpture, clay and all that kind of thing, and I did a little bit of clay myself back then. Yeah. But I haven't been teaching it at TAFE, and I'm just in a situation at the moment where I'm just about to teach a sculpture unit, and I'm getting a bit excited because, touching clay again when I haven't actually – I normally teach drawing, painting, printmaking, textiles. I do a screen printing unit. We also have things like develop self as artist and plan a career in the arts, and installation work. That's where I usually get my students to go out and help do art extraordinaire at Bunbury Catholic College.
Of course.
And we also do go down and do a bus trip down to Margaret Open Studios, so we actually get out and see a lot of what's going on. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm across the board, and I think it really depends on any particular day of what I feel like doing. Yeah. But I do really love painting. That's probably my passion at the moment.
Right.
But
this might be a silly question. You mean like oil painting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Yep. No, not house painting. I'm over that.
Oh no, because you wouldn't believe it, but I've been friends with a lot of tattooists over the time, and they're all into like water-based painting.
Yeah.
Because it does correlate pretty directly to tattooing.
Well, I do. Yeah, I mean, I like working acrylics and then oils over the top. But I'm not really great with watercolors. But a few of my students I do actually teach it though still, but I usually get my students to try everything.
Yep.
And we do a unit, explore the use of colour with painting, where they'll work with impasto mediums, watercolours, acrylic, gouache, like lots of different mediums, and you'll find the students gravitate towards one or the other, and then at the end, when they get to do their projects or their assessments, they actually get to choose what they want. They might want to paint onto paper or canvas, or they might want to do acrylics or watercolours or a mixed media piece.
Yep.
So you kind of, you get them to try a whole lot of different things with different projects, and then they gravitate towards what they want to do.
Wow. Do you... Oh, I'm going to be honest. I have like 25 questions to ask you at once. Hey, I'm so fascinated by... All right. When like raising your kids, do you find that through the same like methods of teaching students to getting them to be uncomfortable and to get them to, like, I know you want to do this, but let's sort of steer over here for a bit. And I know you don't want to be here, but just be here with me and understand that you're uncomfortable and we're going to be uncomfortable, and that's fine. Do you find that in the teaching or raising of your kids that you did a lot of that as well? Did you put them in uncomfortable positions to try and draw more out of them and give them more experience?
I don't think consciously I did. I think my kids were open to a lot of different experiences, but they also, I guess I was a sporting star. Like I was, a gymnast and a swimmer and all this kind of stuff at school. And when it came to me leaving school, it was like, well, do I go and become a sports teacher or do I go into art? And funnily enough, I think I'm a very practical person, and I thought I can do art when I'm 80, maybe not do sport when I'm 80. That was my thought process back then. So that's, I was passionate about both. So I automatically kind of thought that my kids would be sporting people because their dad also was, I think he was a champion in tennis and he played hockey. So you automatically think that your kids are sort of going to follow, you know. So I did, of course, might put my kids into sport. I know my daughter tried netball and she tried gymnastics and she tried cheerleading, and there was dance and there's a whole lot of different things. And my son, I think mostly sort of did hockey, but it was never a passion for them. Yep. Whereas for me, it was like 20 hours a week of sport. I couldn't get enough. Yeah. So I always let them try different things, and then again, creatively, like they could come into my studio and paint on canvases and do whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, that's huge.
So, but again, not really interested in art. So my son ended up, I think he came out of the womb with a fishing rod. I don't know where it came from. Wow. But he's obsessed with fishing. Yep. And that's all he does is, fishing. And my daughter's doing dermal science at the moment. So her whole thing is skin. She's interested in the whole process behind skin, and so hoping that that's going to be great for me when I'm older. Or now. But two different areas. I didn't expose them to that. Yeah. I know my son did have a sort of a wonderful mentor sort of growing up who used to take him fishing because his dad had passed away when he was young, and so maybe that really built on that passion for him. But you try, and I think children sometimes, if they're nurtured to be able to go and do what they want to do, then they're going to find their own passions, I think. But exposing them to different things is important. I mean, I used to go camping. I've only just sold my camper trailer actually a couple of months ago. Sad. And I used to take, my kids camping all the time, and my daughter was just not interested, and my son couldn't get enough. So, and I've got to the stage now where my son can take himself camping now. And, my daughter's doing her own thing as well. So I was like, do I really need the camper for just me now? So
yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're I think what I'm hearing, or maybe what I'm interpreting, is that maybe on a subconscious level you didn't necessarily push them into discomfort or those uncomfortable situations as much as leaving all the doors open for them to find those uncomfortable situations themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's so. To be honest, it's really like, you know, I'm 33. We've been trying to get pregnant for, like 12 months. We went through IVF. I had to get a vasectomy reversal. It's a whole story, right?
Yeah.
And so through that whole process, you go like, well, do I really want to be a dad? Because I spent 8 years with a vasectomy through my 20s, actively not wanting to be a dad, and then to have that big shift and then, trying and cleaning up our lifestyle and saying no to a lot of things and leaning into like, yeah, we'll buy this pram when we're nowhere near pregnant. We'll get this cot, we're nowhere near pregnant. We'll get this house, we're nowhere near pregnant. And
manifesting.
Manifesting, pushing in that direction as if it's definitely going to happen, which I believe works across the board.
I do too.
That in a nutshell, that's religion, by the way. That's faith. That's just going, yep, this is what it is. We're doing that. Yep. And through that whole process, you keep asking yourself, like, well, what sort of parent do I want to be? What were my parents to me? What was my childhood? What do I want this child's childhood to be like? And then when you do get pregnant, well, then it gets just like a whole different dimension of real, right? Then you start really going like, well, what was my dad going through when my mum was 14 weeks pregnant, right? So through all of that, I've had like a really just like assessment of what was actually happening in my childhood. And I think like some of the things you realize that there's no such thing as normal. Like you're normal, my normal, they're normal, neighbors normal, everyone's completely abnormal, to be honest. Like everything is just weird, right? So then when you go, okay, like what does just trying your best and positioning yourself in the best position look like? And it really just boils down to state of mind. It boils down to like just healthy, wealthy, abundant, happy together, right?
Yep.
And then when those are all correct, and also correct me if I'm wrong because I'm an idiot. I'm young. I'm trying to figure it out. When you do that, that's how you leave those doors open. So if they want to wander into like, I might try fishing. Yep. I might try gymnastics. I might try this. You're like, yeah, cool. All right. Go.
I don't think there is any rule book. We all think this is what we're going to be like as a parent. I never expected to be a sole parent. So my kids were 2 and 4 when my husband passed of cancer. And so that, I was exhausted. I was trying to do like run a business, work, be a parent, still make it to sporting events, still try to do homework, and try to be everything. And I'm not quite sure I've slowed down from that. You so get into that
momentum.
Yeah,
almost.
It's like constantly working and to provide.
Yeah.
And provide security for the kids. And I don't think I did anything well, but they're still alive. I got them through, and it can be really hard journey even when you've got a partner.
Yeah.
But in the state of the economy and young people coming through at the moment, it's hard. So you have these, I think, aspirations of what you're going to be like as a parent, and then sometimes they completely get thrown out the door.
Yeah.
So you can only do your best. So,
yeah, of course. I think I always go back to, and like I talk to other young business owners who are either parents, just become parents, or hoping to be parents. Yep. And there's been a pretty constant theme of this podcast, that your episode 201.
Yep.
There's been a pretty consistent theme for the past like 60 episodes of like parenthood and that sort of, I don't know, I think it's more just human experience, and being a parent is very natural for that.
Well, it's part of the reason why I started the screen printing business at home, because you put your kids to bed, go upstairs and print. Or I'm home so I can work around the kids.
Yep.
I have this memory of having a gate. I used to have my studio downstairs. It's now upstairs, but I had one of those child gates across the door so that my child couldn't get into the studio. And I've put all their toys and stuff outside in a little thing outside the gate, and I'm just trying to get some screen printing done. While they're there, and I'm trying to entertain them. They didn't have tablets back then. I don't think I'd give my child a tablet anyway. But, you're trying to entertain them while you're printing.
Yeah.
And then trying not to make a mistake printing. you know, like while while your mind is kind of elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, and I'll never forget, there's another thing I remember is I have quite a large house, and my children's bedrooms were at opposite ends of the house.
Okay.
And I remember, and our lounge room is in the middle of the house, and I remember one night putting one to bed, and then going and putting the other one to bed, and then coming out and the other one had come out, and then putting that one to bed. And I just kept walking,
backwards and forwards.
20 meters of the house, back and forth, putting them to bed, putting them to bed, and then just collapsing after like an hour of just continually trying to put these kids to bed. Because I did those, those child locks. You put those little plastic covers over the door so the child can't open the door.
Yeah.
And my son just went, "Oh, what's this?" and just opened the door straight away. It's like, what? My son was one of those kids that were, you couldn't get anything past him when he was young. So, yeah.
Interesting. So the past, what are we talking, like 10, 14 years have just been a continuous slog by the sounds of it?
20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And do you think that there's got to be something there emotionally that is maybe waiting to be transmuted, is a word, into art, into some sort of expression, do you think?
Well, I think when I turned 50, I think, you've got this imaginary halfway point in your life, and I think after that I went, well, hang on a minute, what about me?
Yeah.
And I think also when you go through menopause, you get to that point where it's like, bugger everybody else, and you start to go, hang on a minute, I've been a giver all my life, and when do I start getting something back? And you become a bit resentful of everything that you keep giving to everybody. So I think I got to that point where it's like, well, you actually need to start planning for that time. Don't just expect it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But start planning for that to happen. So I do have a plan.
Yep.
And so that I get to a point where I do a bit of traveling and I do a bit of my art. That's my plan. My kids are still, I'm still supporting my kids at the moment, till they get to the point where they can support themselves. But I think a lot of our younger generation are going to be staying at home longer as well. You
said before your children are almost at the age of self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've acknowledged about myself and other people my age is that last 10% of self-sufficiency takes about 15 years.
Yeah. Well, I have a 19-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And they're still growing. They're still still developing. But I can see growth.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because you're just treading water for such a long time, and then you go, oh, hang on a second. I think last year or the year before, I think it was the year before, my stepbrother got married in Port Douglas, and I said, right, I'm going to Port Douglas, and the kids are like, great, we're going to Port Douglas. I went, no, actually, I'm going.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? I said, yeah, I'm going for a week. You guys are fine. I think my mother-in-law ended up coming and staying with them as well. But it was a real rush for me because it was during term and I had to take some time off, and I rushed to the plane, and I got on the plane and I got to Port Douglas, and I suddenly woke up in the morning and went, it's just me. Like, I get to do whatever I want for a week. I can go on walks. I go to a restaurant and I'm only paying for myself. Like it was a real eye-opener as to what my life could be like, so that, I think sometimes when you're a parent, you don't think past ever being a parent and ever having that responsibility. So I think I got a little taste of how I can, start having some time for me again. So
how old were you when your eldest was born?
32. 32.
Okay.
And I think they were 2 years apart. Maybe I was nearly 33 and 35, I think. Yeah.
Right. So you had done some living before your children were born?
Yeah, yep, definitely. I'd worked a lot.
Yeah.
I wanted some security before I had kids.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my husband didn't want children.
Yeah.
And when we met, he was like, no, I'm not interested in, populating the planet and all that kind of thing. And I said, oh, well, that's a shame because I'm having children in 5 years. And at that point I was already mad in love with him, so I thought, oh God, what am I going to do here?
Figure this out then.
Yeah, and I think we'd been together for a year, and he went, well, I could come around to it, I said, good, because we got 4 years to go. And yeah, I fell pregnant straight away. Like the basically 5 years. Like, yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So we'd been together nearly 10 years. It was quite a story actually, because we'd had both our children, and we had planned to buy 50 acres out in Ferguson Valley and build an art gallery. So we had, dreams and aspirations. My husband wanted to do, he was a filmmaker and he lectured at uni as well.
Yep.
And he wanted to build, unusual chalets. And so we had this whole plan.
Oh, wow.
And we'd had our daughter, and we were looking at blocks, 50-acre blocks out in Fergie. And then my husband said to me, why don't we just put that on the back burner and have our second child, and then when they get to about school age, then we'll start that process. And I went, yeah, okay. And I think had we not done that, I could be living in a shed out in Fergie Valley and I may not have even had my son. So we got married and 2 days after we got married, we found out that my husband had cancer.
No way.
So when he passed away probably 9 months after that, and my kids were 2 and 4. So I was pretty grateful that we hadn't started that next chapter because and again, people said to me, well, you can still make that happen. And I said, well, that was kind of our dream.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out then what was next for me. And I remember going to a counsellor one day and sort of going, I'm trying to do my 5-year plan and I can't figure out my 5-year plan. And she looked at me and she said, what? I said, well, what's his 5-year plan? I said, it's what I do. I do 5-year plans. And she said, why can't it be today?
Yeah, yeah.
And I went, oh, I could just do a 1-year plan.
Yeah.
And it changed my life. I know that sounds really silly.
No, I get it.
But I had always, for my whole life, made plans. Like, I'm a list writer. And so I'm always like, that's my goal, that's my aim, going to get there in 5 years. And because I was newly widowed, I had these 2 children, I had no idea now. My whole world had just shifted. So what was now going to be my goal? So then I just went, okay, it's just this year. And it helped me because I went, I can do this year. I can focus on that. So, it's things change.
That sounds like critical thinking meeting creativity, by the way. That sounds like 2D meeting 3D.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was an employee and I was just driving trucks, I could have a 5-year plan. I can't tell you what I'm doing this afternoon. Now I'm a business owner. I can't. There is just so many moving parts all the time, and every week is so vastly different from the one before it. And it's like I've come to just realize that I am a rock floating in space, and I just have to accept that. And the only thing that we can plan is I know that somewhere around October 14th we're having a baby. Everything else is up for discussion.
Yeah.
Everything else is negotiable. And the crazy part about that is when you're on the other side of that, spectrum's not the word, when you're on the other side of that scale and you are a list writer and you need to know what's happening and the dishwasher needs to be stacked properly and it's this day of the week at this time, you look at someone who lives like this and you're like, oh, they're crazy. They're crazy. It doesn't make sense because what are you tethered to? It's the whole point. You're tethered to nothing.
Yeah.
That's what life is. You were never tethered to anything. It's just an idea you've got with your calendar.
Yeah.
And I think me 5 years ago looking at that, you go, I don't even want to become what that is and what all the potential that it could be because it does remove me from what I think life should be.
Yeah.
But in the pursuit of testing it and allowing it to sort of ruin you and make you at the same time, that's what gives you real understanding of oh, I kind of get what the point is, Yeah. I'm not saying I understand the meaning of life, but if there is a meaning in life, it's in that direction.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like it was because I'm a list writer as well. A certain part of me needs to know that, for now I boiled it down at the very least. It's not going to fail miserably. I need to know that. Everything else is cool. As long as it meets somewhere near 0 or better, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, my list writing, because I've always been a list writer, but now it's a necessity because I don't remember anything.
Okay.
so it's before it was here's my plan for the day. Yeah. Whereas now I have a piece of paper, sort of, my diary next to me, and it might be pay gas comes into my head. I write it down because I used to be able to multitask really well. And now I'm a shocker for memory. And also I think because I'm doing too much.
Yeah,
so it's very hard to sort of hold all that information.
Yeah, you've
all
broadened
at
your
once.
bandwidth too much, maybe.
Yeah, I've got a lot on the go. I actually had a job, and this is quite funny. I had a job for someone the other day, and I printed, probably $1,000 worth of hoodies and tops and stuff. And I got to the last shirt, and I went, "Oh, I've printed the wrong colour."
Yeah.
And I was like, I was so angry with myself, because I was like, I've just jumped in, I've just got on with the job, I've not taken the time to go, right, quiet, what am I doing here?
Yep.
Because I'm just kind of, that energy is always moving. And I was really lucky, because the customer actually preferred that colour in the end, and then wanted all their printing done in that colour from moving forward.
Thank goodness.
But it could have ended up in disaster.
Yeah.
But I do have that occasionally where, I just jump into things without kind of, that thought process. Could be an ADHD thing. I've never been diagnosed, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Yeah. I think that's a part of brilliance, by the way, is having some sort of neurodivergency.
Well, I think, I often say to my students, because I have a lot of students with, different learning styles.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a superpower.
Yeah.
So, if you find your passion, no one can kind of stop you, because you're hyper focused in that area.
Yeah.
So you've got to see it as a positive rather than a negative.
Oh, I agree.
But if you are at school, then you've got to fit with this, this norm of, like, everyone's got to be doing the same curriculum, sitting in the same classroom. Those kids with that hyperactivity, it just doesn't suit them.
Yeah.
I do think the school system needs a bit of a shake up with that, because a lot of those kids, they end up not fulfilling what they could be.
Yeah.
And some students fight against it, and they end up doing what they want to do anyway. Maybe they go and get a trade or something, and they find out what they want to do. Yeah. But then other kids just get lost and don't think that they were ever good at anything.
Yeah, they become criminals like I did.
And that's
the like, I spent my whole life trying not to get in trouble.
Yep.
I got kicked out of every class. I've been to the principal's office more than I've been to class. You know what I mean? That's my whole primary school and high school. And by the time I was in the real world, I wasn't an athlete anymore. I'm just like, who am I? It's like,
I do have to say that it's be bloody hard being a teacher. As I said, I've been in the school system where I've, been teacher support basically.
Yep.
And to have, 30 kids in a class, and maybe 10 of them have different learning styles or need learning adjustments, and you only get them for like a 50-minute period, and then they're on to the next thing, especially in a creative area where, you're just laying out the newspaper on the tables and setting up the paint, and the students come in and they've got to put all their bags down, and then they're going to get started on their art, and then they've got to pack up. And so it's like they might be just getting into that creative energy, and then they're packing up and they're going to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think, some schools run on single periods instead of double periods, for those areas. And you think, how do you actually get into that space, when you're just moving from class to class?
Okay,
so
let's talk about that. So flow state, obviously you can probably describe flow state a bit better than me. Do you want to have a shot at it?
So in terms of when you're finally in that energy space to produce, sometimes it's like writer's block. You don't automatically just go in and go, I'm just going to start painting, because it might not be in you. So that's where you have to find inspiration, and that's what I say to students. I can have a student sitting in my class, and the first hour and a half, I come around and I go, oh, that's amazing. And then, because there's a white page in front of them still.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, that's fantastic. And, give them a little bit of grief because they haven't got started. And, quite often it's like, well, where am I going to find the ideas from? It's like, okay, let's do the brainstorm first. Yep. Okay, let's kind of figure out what interests me, what things do I like, and then start researching those areas. And then start doing some drawing and things associated with that, and then start playing with materials and, trying to get yourself into that space. Yep. So if you're at school and you're going, you've got a project with the art teacher, you can't really expand on anything or really get into it when you're just going from one class to another.
Well, if I'm thinking about school, right, when I was at school...
You got rash already? You're getting a rash from thinking about school?
Yeah, I'm getting antsy. But no, I think the first thing is like I'm trying to be cool.
Yep.
I'm trying to fit in.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get her attention. I'm trying to, pinch my mate and make him laugh. I'm trying to am I buddies enough with the teacher to, be cool with this situation, or am I enemies with the teacher? Like there's so many levels of shit going on before I care about maths or English or art or whatever it is I'm meant to be here for. Right?
I'm going to tell you about one of the teachers that was at Bunbury Catholic College who I stole and took to TAFE with me.
Okay.
She did something that, it does take time. So, teachers putting in this kind of time, people don't realise what goes on behind the scenes. But so we had a group of students that were just that, a bit kind of, mucking around. It was a group of boys in this particular class. And she would look up their sector, which is like what was going on. You could see if a child perhaps had got into trouble, and there was a sector notes so she would look up usually science or something like that beforehand. She would look up and go, okay, this particular student, that particular student's got in trouble in science, so this is what's coming. They're coming into the class and they're having one of those days.
Okay.
So the first thing she did with that class was she got them all to do a brainstorm of their interests, right? So for, let's just say Freddie was interested in football, Johnny was interested in fishing, whatever it was. So she would have in her back pocket specific projects just linked to those particular areas. So just say they were doing stencil work, like, graffiti work or something like that they were doing. She would have printed out an image to do with, football or whatever it might be. Yep. So as soon as those kids were losing interest and starting to misbehave, she would put their interest right in front of them and say, all right, I want you to work on this, I want you to work on that.
Oh, wow.
And instantly they would be re-engaged. Now, that's not possible for everybody in a class of 30 when you're doing year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. But it was just a really good way of saying, I see you and I know what you're struggling with.
Yeah.
And how can I make this more enjoyable for you?
Yeah, wow. I think that immediately resonated with me, because as you started that, it was like, oh, she hears them, she sees them. And that's the big thing I felt like I didn't get at school. Like no one saw me. I had one, his name was Mr. Ryan, but we all called him Rob by his first name. He was my year 11 English teacher. And he was the first teacher that's just like, dude, yeah.
There's always one.
You're a fucking animal, you know? And he's backstory, I've done creative writing vocationally myself for, probably 15 years now. Like that started when I was at school, and that got brought to light in English by Rob, like Mr. Ryan, because he's like, well, you do this at home? Like, dude, this is English. It's writing. It's the same thing. And I'm like, he was the first person to connect the dots for me. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, you want stories? I can write stories. He's like, write me stories. And I write him these. I used to write ridiculous romance love stories as a teenager.
Yeah.
And he brought all that up. And I remember actually thinking oh, he knows that I'm here. He gave everyone in the class nicknames. That was another thing. It was like, no, you're not Jake. I think my name was King Dong because I had this joke that anyway. Yep. And it's like that's what that is with her. Yeah. It's the recognition of I see you. You like this.
Most people say they had one teacher at school that may have made a difference. Mine was Steve Bullied at Bridgetown High School.
Okay.
So I went to Duncraig High School in Perth, and I wasn't academic. I was not barely passing.
Yeah.
Both my parents were teachers, mind you. So we moved to this small town. I went from 300 kids in my year at Duncraig High School to about 80 kids at Bridgetown High School. And because they had kind of like a lower class and a higher class, so the more academic kids in the higher class and less academic in the other class.
Okay.
So because my father was a teacher at the school, they had a policy that they didn't want, parents to teach their kids.
Yeah.
So I got put up into the more academic class by default because they didn't want me being taught by my father.
Right.
So I was around the kids that, didn't muck around. They were there to learn, which is also important, I think. And I think the first essay that I did, I failed. And Steve Bullied pulled me aside and he said, well, I've been at school for 3 or 4 weeks. He goes, I've been watching you. He said, you're actually quite mature and you're very, very capable, and I'm going to give you another chance on this assignment. So I want you to go home because I actually really believe that you can do this.
Wow.
So he gave me strategies to, fix the assignment and whatever. Back then it was you got an A1 and A2 or A plus, A minus or something like that anyway.
Yeah.
So I worked really hard on it. And I gave it back to him, and then the next week he stood up in front of the whole class and he said, "Now this is how you write an assignment."
Wow.
And it was a A plus, and to this day I swear it was probably not even a pass. I don't know, but I think that he made me believe that I belonged in that class and that I was capable, and it worked because I put more effort into everything.
Hey? He instilled faith into your ability.
Yeah, and I had a math teacher too that I suddenly started to do well in math, and my mum didn't understand it. And he said to my mum, Kirstie operates on everything being useful and real life, so I just put a dollar sign in front of any equation and she can work it out.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to, and again, it's really hard for teachers because seriously, how many kids do you get coming through your classroom?
Yeah.
And you can't be all over every kid. I truly believe there should be an education support in every class to support the teacher, supporting the kids.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. Because when I was a technician at Bunbury Catholic College, I would quite often be in the class, even though it wasn't necessarily my role to, support. I was an education support person, I was a technician, but because I was a teacher, because I, was a lecturer, I was able to sometimes help the lecturer, the teachers in the class. Yeah. And I think that that's great because sometimes the teacher would be at a table really helping this group and there'd be a group over here doing nothing and mucking around. So I'd just wander around and go, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Let's get back on track." So it would be so hard to be able to be that teacher in that setting. So yes, you're going to have some students you gravitate towards, but then the ones that muck around, I saw kids sitting out in the corridor because they've been kicked out of class, for the whole lesson. And that's what they wanted. They didn't want to be in the class, and they didn't learn. But it also, how was the teacher going to function with that student being in the class, being a ratbag?
I think, is Mr. Barringer still at BCC? He was like a maths and aeronautics teacher.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is the bloody... Yeah, let's not go get into that. What I was going to say, so my dad was a transport yard manager for Centurion when I was growing up. So I've lived all over the Northwest, moved schools a dozen times, blah, blah, blah. And that was like, because I was so accustomed to we're not going to be here long enough for me to worry about the consequences of settling in and doing the stuff. And also every time you move, every time the atmosphere changes, whether it's the city, the school, the classroom, whatever it is, you sort of never really, for me, I never really became who I was going to be. Yeah. I was always sort of refreshing the page. And because of that, I'd always test these different personalities, like, oh, that didn't work there, that didn't work there, that didn't work there. And then by the time I was like actually realizing like school has a greater purpose than just seeing out the day. They're trying to teach you something, like the curriculums never perfectly line up from year to year, from class to class, from school to school. They're all a little bit different. And I think the one thing that really like solidified what was going on was the idea that like, I'm not doing this to piss you off. I'm doing this because you're meant to learn something. And I sort of skipped that. I went from like, well, how does whatever you're trying to teach me apply to the real world, which is what you were talking about before, that real life application, putting a dollar sign in front of something. Mr. Barringer did that. That's why I asked. He did that for me. And that really like, oh yeah, cool, money, makes sense. But I think that my situation is maybe a little bit more unique compared to your average kid who is just a rat bag from K through 12. And the teacher trying to, like find a place or find the energy or find the activity that actually is like unique or representative to that kid, so it actually has somewhere.
Because they didn't have the chance to get to know you.
Yeah. No, I didn't have the chance.
I was the same.
Yeah, I didn't have the chance to know me, and it's like now I'm like, well, it fucking worked, right? I got a business that pays all my family members and we're fun, we're happy, we're healthy, we're wealthy. It's good, Yeah. Like, did I slip through the gaps and it all worked? I mean, my question maybe goes, this potential that I'm now unlocking, is it because of the crappy schooling? Is it because of the crappy experience that now I'm like, oh, let me optimize the experience. Let me get good at communicating. So when I teach, when I learn, I know what is actually going on. I know what the process is so I can do it really well. Or was this potential always in there? And had I had a consistent schooling with, maybe teachers or curriculum or a combination of both that allowed that to flower in that environment, would it have been a different thing now? Would I have maybe become a more intellectual, more learned, whatever it is?
I don't know. I mean, I was the same. I moved from school to school because, I started off in Sydney. My parents were both teachers and I was always just trying to make friends.
Yeah.
And I feel like I got lost in the system until I went to Bridgetown High School, where you couldn't get lost because there were hardly any students,
kids, yeah.
and they were brilliant teachers. It was a really lovely, supportive environment. And, that's I was only at Bridgetown High School for a year, and it's one of my best memories.
Wow.
And so, I moved around, quite a bit. So that, affected me, I think, as well. Can't remember where I was going to go with that.
We're talking about unique versus standard schooling experiences.
Oh, yeah. So my husband, he was very academic. He went to Bunbury Grammar and then went on to uni and did a degree in commerce. And
wow.
And then, and I said, why? Because when I met him, I was like, why commerce, and he said I was a victim of the 80s. It was kind of like what everybody did.
Yep.
Because then he went on and did a degree in honours in environmental studies in University in Tasmania.
Okay.
And then when I met him, he was working for, it used to be Water and Rivers Commission, so government job. And 9 to 5, and getting to know him, I'm like, I don't quite get, why you're doing what you're doing, because you feel like you're someone else. And so anyway, he said, I said, what would you do if you weren't doing this? What would you want to do? And he said, I'd want to go back to uni again. So this would be degree number 3.
Yep.
And do a Bachelor of Arts in film, because I want to be a documentary maker. So I went, well, quit your job. Do it, yeah. I've got my plan. Jump on board with me. I was building my house at the time, and I said, I'll support you to do that. So he quit his job and he went off and did, his 3rd degree.
Wow.
But where I was getting with that was, sometimes you can be very academic and very good at school and still not have an idea really of where your path is, like you're trying different things until you kind of figure it out. In the end, he did some documentaries. One of the last ones he did was on the Yalloop and the refinery and everything that was going on out there. So it was linked to his environmental, degree. Also just finally finding that passion. So sometimes people take their whole lives to find, what it is that they want to do, and some people leave in school and it's like they know straight away.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, and the envy when you hear someone, they're like, "Yeah, I want to be this," and they're 18, and you're like, "Cool." Like, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I think, in reflection, when I look at sort of the past, well, this has been podcast Black Ink, Outfit Co. Black Ink's been around for about 11 and a half years with a coffee van, but Outfit Co. and this version of Black Ink's it's about 5 years old.
Yep.
And when I look at the past 5 years, it sort of like slowly gets better. The past 12 months, it gets really good. The past 3 months, it just goes out of control. And when I look at what's going on, I'm like, okay, you can probably break it down into particular elements that are equating to this, call it success for the sake of the conversation, right? This success or this growth is coming from a few particular elements. One of the big ones is from systems. I identified the use and power of systems through working at Hungry Jack's and Iluka Resources as a process operator. Both times in those job roles, I was like, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. I hate this.
Yep.
I hate this. Then I look at my capacity to have long form conversations, not say go into interesting areas, understand the value of the person sitting across from me, and try and draw as much fun things to listen to out of that. It comes from my time truck driving. I know it doesn't really correlate there, but I used to have these really long phone calls with people because especially on night shift, you get to about 10 o'clock, people got to go to bed. So I would try and extract blood from stones from these people, just trying to have meaningful conversations.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember half the time I'm thinking, man, if this was recorded, I would listen to this because it is interesting. Because you get past like, how was your day? I don't fucking care. Tell me about your childhood.
Yeah.
So it's like, the point that I'm making is I think I did a lot of jobs that I had to do them to the point of hating them to get to a point that I didn't want to ever do them again. And B, there was always some underlying factor or element or lesson or something I was getting that would later translate into a really effective part of what I'm doing now. And I feel like I have enough wisdom, look at me go, wisdom to look above myself right now and see that the thing that I'm doing now actually isn't what I really want to be doing, but this is my season.
Yeah,
and I'm in it, and I embody it to the best of my capacity so that whatever's coming next, I can go, oh, I extracted all of the juice out of that and now I get to put it into this next thing.
Yep.
And that is, like I feel like, again, that goes back to that being able to, I don't know what the meaning of life is, but it's something in that direction. It's being able to go like, hey, I know whatever you're doing right now. Most people, you probably don't want to be doing the thing you're doing right now forever. But if you can just really fucking be there and do it and enjoy it somehow and try and get some value or information or something that you can take with you to the next chapter, to the next step, and then be able to project it onto that and then go, cool, now I've got a foundation to stand on to do the next thing. And maybe that's not even the thing you want to do, but we're still getting a step closer to the thing you might want to do.
Yep.
That's it. That's the point. Right.
It's a great ideal. I think when you bring children into the mix, sometimes you get into a situation where it's like, well, you've got to keep doing something you don't want to do because you've got a responsibility of now not being able to take that risk, some people do. They go, well, no, I'm going to risk, leaving this job and going to this job because it's, what I want to do. But that job might only be 3 months, but you're just hoping it becomes more or whatever, But I think, that's, I think, where people get stuck. Yep. When you have a responsibility of a mortgage or children or supporting another spouse or, whatever it might be, sometimes you don't have that freedom to go, hey, I'm just going to jump into this next thing that I want to do.
Of course.
I think it's brave. My sister-in-law at the moment, she has just left. She's actually doing, I guess you call it blogging on Facebook or Instagram. She had a wonderful job. I assume, probably a high-paying job in the film industry. She was, mixing it with all the actors and working on film sets and everything.
Okay.
But long hours, not spending time with her daughter or, my stepbrother. And she just went, and also had actually lost her sister a few years ago to melanoma. And I think really got to the stage where it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So she's taken that risk and now she's moving into something else where she's learning a new area and hoping that that's going to work out or believing that it's going to work out.
Yeah.
But I just kind of went, wow, that's really brave. I mean, she does have a partner to help support the family.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can really get stuck in that whole, like I'm one of those people, I've got to have security.
Yeah.
I don't really want to step outside that comfort zone too much. But yeah, I think it's really brave to be able to do that.
As someone who's on, maybe saying that I'm on the other side isn't accurate, but as someone who's on the other side, like we gave up everything. We got rid of the rental. We saved up 20 grand each, which in hindsight is not enough. We saved up 20 grand each. We left in a caravan. The day that we left, COVID lockdowns. We made it as far as Mandurah. We lived on a 5-acre block that we got a groundskeeping position at. So lived there for free, look after the block, do a bit of maintenance and that. We lived there for 18 months. And in that 18 months, we spent all of our money and got to a point where it's like, hey, I either need to go back to work or I need to start this black ink thing up again, but I'm not doing coffee. I sort of had some success with, selling shirts that someone else printed.
Yep.
So taught myself Photoshop, taught myself Illustrator, learned how to design, made crappy designs, got third parties to print them for me, sold them for, a couple of bucks more than what it cost me to make them.
Yeah.
And
We've
that
all
led,
been
there. And then you learn I've got to make my own. And, we moved back to Dad's house at the back of his place at Jalarup and sold the caravan and moved into a rental that I could afford 2 weeks rent with You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I literally for probably up until 6 months, it's been, I know that I can live one more week.
yeah,
You know, like I was doing like pushing orders, pounding the pavement, making phone calls just to live another week.
yeah,
And like, given we're both young, we're both healthy. Riz's fallback, my fiance Riz, she's a support worker. You know, up until 2 years ago, I'm like, look, I can pay you $400 a week, but trust me, it'll work. You know, there was a moment in that caravan, in our shitty 1983 Viscount single axle tiny caravan with no bathroom that leaked and was cold all the time. That I was like, hey, I'm about to, like, I'm at zero right now. I can afford to keep the business running. I need you to keep me alive. You know? And it's like literally just fucking risk. And it worked. But you're 100% right. If you have dependency, if you have the psychological need to know that there's safety, and it's like, I can't do this if I can't fall back on whatever, like it's actually impossible. It's literally like it's like so close to it's so close to the likelihood of it not working is so high that it's almost impossible, and almost as close enough for most people to go like, I'll never do it.
Yeah.
You know, as to go back to where I was, as someone on the other side, it's worth it. It's worth it because even if you fail, you get to go, fuck, I failed.
But you also need a good support system, you know, like, and not just like financially, but also people that believe in what you're doing and encourage you, because there'll be times where you feel like, I don't think this is going to work.
That's most of the time.
Yeah, well, but you know, you've also got to have belief in yourself that, you know, and you know, external things can happen. I mean, if you're an artist at the moment, you know, people are going to be putting their money into art. Maybe they're more worried about putting fuel in their car, you know, like so. But it will all come around, I think, eventually. And if you have a passion for something, then, you know, that's the most important thing, is fulfilling maybe what you're here for, to create.
Passion is the best fuel.
Yeah.
It's the best fuel.
Otherwise, you're doing the 9 to 5 grind, and that's what it will end up feeling like. And unless you have a hobby on the weekends, it's, you know, I'd rather my job be a passion, which actually it always has been. I think I'm working too much at the moment, but it's always been a passion of mine to teach. So I think when I don't have that passion anymore, then it will be time to move on to other things. Yeah. So
hang up the brushes, apron.
Yeah, well, no, get them out.
No.
Hang
get
up them
the
out
teacher
for me.
Apron, pick up the artist apron.
Yeah, I think while I'm still getting something out of, you know, watching those students go through, and, you know, sometimes they come into art because they think, oh, art's easy. I love that. It's like, you know, they don't realise that, you know, you still have to do research, and you still have to, you know, there's some paperwork of, you know, because we are at TAFE, we're a government training package, we're training you for the workforce. So it's not just about coming in and doing some lovely drawings. That's part of it. But yeah, it's developing those skills for the workplace. So I think, it's nice to see those students learn, grow, and some of them will actually go, well, you know what, this has been a great stepping stone into TAFE, and I can now see horticulture. I'd love to go and do that. And then they move in. You know, it's all about stepping into that space that's when we've been at school for 12 years or however long we've been, to be then able to step into a job or another education facility or something else. It's scary because school is all you've known.
Yeah.
So it's nice when students come to do the VETIS program. They're still at school, but they're just putting their feelers out, and they can then have a taste of what it's like to get, you know, that other education, and see what's out there and make that step.
TAFE feels, I never went to TAFE, but TAFE feels like it's a nice bridging between school and adult life.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure, because you have to turn up. You still have to turn up. Still have to get your homework done. But you're also mixing with new people and different age groups, because every course you do will have, you know, 16-year-olds to 7-year-olds. So with the VETIS program, we've also got kids from different schools. So one of my Cert 3s at the moment, there's probably 5 different schools. So, you know, that are coming I've even had Cape Nat, so students from as far away as Cape Nat. I've got one at the moment, I think she comes up from Pemberton. So they catch the bus to come in. So, also connecting with, other students from around, different schools as well.
Yeah.
So, and that is about, like adulthood, coming into adulthood, not the same kids that you've gone to school with the whole up until year 12. You're also now meeting new people.
Yeah.
So
starting to realise that there's always one in every situation that you're not going to get along with, and there's always going to be someone who has an opposing view, and you're not sort of in that like safety net of your catchment, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
You're sort of like, because I know I've been employed by probably, 10 different employers across my career of being employed by someone. And you sort of do get that, like, on average, the average experience is there's going to be one absolute dickhead in the group of people I have to work with, and I just have to work with them.
Yeah.
It's just, it is what it is. And I think when you're at school, you're like, that's, Troy, I've known Troy since, we were this high. Troy's just like that. So you sort of like accept Troy for what it is, or for what he is, I should say. But then when you're in like the workplace, you're like, that guy sucks. It's
also coming into an adult learning environment.
Yeah.
So it's no longer school. It's your expectation is that, you're becoming an adult, and there are different expectations than perhaps there were at school, but also more freedoms.
Yep.
I don't get called Mrs. Hahn. It's Kirstie. Or I do have few call me Miss, but I'm like, it's Kirstie, so whereas at school it's that, authority kind of figure. Although, there's still that expectation you have to show respect and turn up on time and do everything you need to do, but it is an adult learning environment. So.
Wow, so it's adult to adult rather than child to adult.
Yeah, and that's how I think that when you start to treat the student like they are a child is the behaviour that they're showing in the class. So it's like, well, okay, if you want to behave like that, then I'm going to have to bring out the, the hat of like, telling you what the go is.
Yeah, what goes and what doesn't. Interesting. Sorry, going back to I sort of opened up the conversation of flow state. Is flow state something that do you find that you regularly find flow state in any activity throughout life?
Well, explain to me what you mean by flow state, because like sort of if it's for creativity, personally, some people, so I've got students that can just access what's in their brain and put it out onto paper, and it's just there, and they can access whatever they want and it's there. And I always say to my students that if I'm going to draw a horse, you got to put the horse in front of me. Like I need that inspiration to get things moving for me. So for me personally, I really have to put myself in that place, put that inspiration in front of me, tell myself to let go instead of be controlling, because I think I'm quite a controlling personality. So flow doesn't happen when you're controlling, I feel.
Okay.
But everyone is so different and on any different day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But I wasn't anticipating any of that as an answer. That's very interesting.
Well, explain to me what you mean by flow state then.
My understanding of flow state is being in a situation where you're unaware of what you're doing because you're so deeply in it that you're just doing it.
Yet you still have to get there. So I have had that before with my painting where I remember one night I was painting something and we always do the WHS, work health and safety, with the paintbrush in the cup of tea, because you get into a stage where you're just so into what you're doing and not realising your paintbrush is going into your cup of tea. But I did a painting one night and I went away it was midnight or something, I went away to do something and I came back and looked at what I was doing and went, whoa, like that, it's gone so in the opposite direction, because I just got into that state where it was just happening on its own.
Yep.
Actually wasn't a positive for that particular painting, but you do get into a creative flow sometimes. But no, me personally, I need to actually get there.
So I think if we look in one direction, it's cultivation of flow state to get an end result.
Yes.
The other direction is oh shit, we were in flow then. We didn't even realize.
Yeah.
We have hit flow state here. We're breaking the fourth wall by talking about it. So we're sort of like, ruining it, whatever. But when you're like, when I'm having a session with the boys and it starts at 2 p.m. and you're like, guys, it's 1 a.m.
Yeah.
That was a flow state
Yeah.
for 8 hours. That was a flow state. We just didn't care about time. It was so just, like I'm getting a drink, getting up to piss, doing this. Hey, can I grab a jumper? This is going, oh, such and such. You here? This will take a photo. And all of a sudden it's been 6 hours. Flow state, right? Very easy example of flow state. Now I'm an avid, I'll call myself a wheelie artist, all right? I'm really good at doing wheelies on push bikes. I learned how to do wheelies at the age of 30. I always wanted to be someone who could do wheelies. And at 30, I was like, I've had enough of wanting to do it. I want to do it. So I got a bike specifically for it. I put all the stuff on it to be good at wheelies. And I just kept on doing it until now I can, doing wheelies with your eyes closed is a lot harder than what it sounds because your equilibrium isn't at play. But I can literally do a wheelie with my eyes closed, brake control, blah, blah, blah. The reason that I like doing wheelies now is not because I'm fulfilling this childhood dream, is because a wheelie forces you to be in flow state. You can't think, I'm leaning too far back, I need to pull on the brake. Your body just knows. You lean too far back and your hand does this, right? And when you come up to the corner and there's a car coming and you need to lean over, I don't tell my body to lean over because we need the bike to turn. The bike just turns. Yeah. It's this demanded flow state. And you can sort of hit it with running. Like I've just did the marathon on the weekend and like there were multiple times where you're like, oh shit, I did a 15-minute block. I got to eat or I got to hydrate. I just completely was gone. It felt like 30 seconds.
Yep.
And, there are a lot of things in life that demand you hit flow for you to actually experience them properly, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm one of those people. I think I overthink a lot of things.
Yeah, you trick yourself out of it.
Yeah. I do set projects for students so that, again, you can't control the outcome. You do have to be in that state where you're just allowing whatever's coming out to come out. And I think I do teach that.
Yeah.
And then how I do it, I think is another thing. I mean, it's like screen printing, like I was saying before. You just hit autopilot. I think I would call it autopilot as opposed to flow.
Yeah.
Where I get in autopilot and I do things. I would love to have that flow state, but I don't feel I have enough time in one thing because creativity, like when you're doing something creative, it can take a long time to do something. You can spend a whole week doing a painting, and I'm too start and stop in my life. I can't just take the time just to do something like that. Whereas with my students, they have more time to do things. As they're working, but they will have a couple of weeks working on a project.
Yeah.
And quite often I've had students that say we're doing painting in the morning and printmaking in the afternoon, and I can see a student's really in that painting.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't stop.
Just do that.
Just do that. Next week, have a whole day of printmaking.
Yeah.
Because you're in that zone, just keep going with it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
But I think there's rules for my students and rules for me. I wish sometimes it's like that whole saying of do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. Interesting. So one thing that I think I first learned about flow state in my early 20s when I was getting into fixie riding. Do you know what a fixie is?
No.
Fixie is a fixed wheel push bike. They use them on the velodrome.
Yep.
They have no brakes, no gears, but they have a fixed gear. So if you slow your pedaling down, they slow down. If you speed up, they go fast. Where normally when you stop pedaling, the wheel spins at the back. It's a free wheel. You don't have that on a fixed wheel bike. Now, there's a small subculture of young men who like to go and play in traffic on these bikes with no brakes or gears.
Yeah.
And it's hugely popular. Now, a lot of people really damage themselves in this pursuit. And, I've had to have a meniscus removal in one of my legs. I've had plenty of crashes. I've got plenty of bikes that are broken in half because of this. But the great thing about fixie riding is it demands a flow state because you can't be thinking, oh, there's a car coming, there's this going on. You literally just have to respond to your environment. Yeah. It just has to happen. Because if you overthink it, you won't go fast enough to do it. You won't enjoy it. And you may as well not go out at all. Just ride a normal bike, right? Yeah. And I think when I first became aware of this, like we used to get obliterated, way too stoned and go and do this, which adds another level of flow. But I think now looking back, it is probably unnecessary. But the concept of there being this part of life that is actually like a magic almost when it happens, and part of the magic is not really specifically going out to do it, but letting yourself find it when it happens. And then when it's happening, don't break the fourth wall and go, this is flow state, because then it pulls you out of it.
Yeah.
Now, wrap all that concept up for me. We're going to call that a skill. Now, the skill of finding flow state, or the skill of enabling flow state, is similar to the skill of painting, right? Similar to the skill of growing a muscle, which is the metaphor that I really focus on here. And I try and communicate this with people, because I feel like it's a really easy way to like understand what the point is, right? So if I want to get bigger biceps, I lift up heavy things in this motion. Day one, not much muscle, not much weight. Mm-hmm. Day 10, a little bit more weight, still not much muscle. Yep. Day 100, my arm changes shape. Yeah. Day 1,000, my arm is completely different, right? And day 10,000, my whole body has probably changed, because now everything around it, the weight's got bigger. I've probably joined a community. I've probably worked out all the other muscles around it because I want it to look normal. The whole skill of that exercise, so the end result that I wanted at the start, is all a through line to each other. So the idea of knowing that flow state exists is day one of pulling this thing up. Like, I know what I want, but I have no idea what it is. I have no idea what the experience is and how to get there, but I'm just going to do day one, right? And then allowing yourself to go, I'm going to go out, try find flow state. Most of the time, you get to like day 1,000 and you still have never found it, but you know 1,000 ways of not doing it. Yeah. So that skill of finding flow state is actually an exercise of like the pursuit of this magical part of life that exists, and typically it only exists for like 15 minutes a week, but when you get it, it's the best. It's for free, and if you get good at it, you can turn it into like 6 hours a week. And the pursuit typically helps you find the thing that you're looking for. Yep. Because I knew deep in me, not as a conscious thought, but deep in me, that I wanted to do wheelies. Why? I don't know. Probably a cool kid down the block did it in Kununurra one day when I was 5 years old. I don't know. But one day when I was in the bike shop and I was like, I'd really like to have that sort of bike and be able to do a wheelie. And then my adult brain's like, dude, do it. Buy the bike, go do wheelies. And I had to pull the handlebars up 1,000,000 times, not doing a wheelie, looking like an idiot 30-year-old, trying to do a wheelie down the block, not doing it, before you get that first little moment of like, whoa, I did it. And then a second turns into a second and a half, turns into 2 years later, to 2-3 years later, to now it's like, yeah, I can wheelie any situation ever, you know? Yeah. And now I can actually do it. Like if I'm having, you know, business block in place of writer's block, if I'm at a point like, oh, these invoices, this process, this system, bike, road, go, beach, wheelie, boom, we're there. Yep. You know? And I'm only saying this because I think it's really valuable to the listeners to know this is out there, but I think it also sounds like maybe you've put a roadblock in place where you're like, I'm not that person. And I think the reality is you're a person and it's a person thing. You're a human and it's a human experience. And by saying, hey, I don't have the skill right now, I don't have the big arm right now, but I'm going to exercise this thing until I get what I want, knowing that the end result is magic.
Yeah. Mine is time.
Yeah, for sure.
Mine all relates to, you know, as I was explaining before, it's mainly just time, and that I'm in that responsibility of still parenting and things that I have to kind of keep that treadmill going, but I am still getting something out of it from what I'm doing. Like I don't still feel like I'm doing the 9 to 5. I'm still getting something out of it. So yeah, it's really interesting what you're talking about. Because I'm very aware, I think, of the roadblocks I put in front of my own creativity, and that I'm quite happy to give all those ideas and, you know, skills and things like that to my students or everybody else, but then I don't give it to myself. It can be an excuse, but I really feel like it is based around time.
Yeah. Caveat, you sound like a superwoman with what you've achieved in your career, and as a parent and as a woman, it's amazing.
But you know, it's funny because I never felt like I was enough until I hit 50, and then I went, what the hell? Like, and a girlfriend, I had this, because I've got some amazing friends, and I, you know, I look at what some of these women are achieving in their lives. And, you know, like I've got one friend, you know, she's always been there for me. She's a yoga teacher. She's a midwife. She's, you know, on the P&C. She's, you know, she's everything. Yeah. And I said to her one day, you know, I look at you and I look at this person, I look at that person, you're parenting, because I never felt like I was good enough as a parent. And she just turned around, she goes, what? She goes, I look at you and I think I could never get as much done in a day that you do. Wow. And then she rambled on about, you know, me being this, you know, superwoman. And I went, I didn't think people thought of me like that. And I had that conversation with a few other friends and like, what do you mean you didn't know that? And I went, I didn't, because, you know, sometimes you need someone to tell you.
Yeah.
You know, for that, you need to hear it. But as I said, when I hit 50, I was like, who am I doing all this for? Yeah. You know, who am I trying to get approval?
Who am I trying to impress?
Yeah. And then I realised, well, no, it's actually about me now. Like, it's about what, you know, who I am as a person, you know, what I'm feeling comfortable with, what I want to achieve, what my goals are. And it doesn't really matter to me now. I mean, I'm sure that's in there, but it's less of trying to get that other person's approval.
Yeah.
You know, through work or through my children or through, it's like, well, you know, like, you know, quite often having that, you know, conflict with a 19-year-old son, and you're like, well, you know, now I'm trying really hard to not react and just go, okay, you know, whatever, you know, because I know that it's trying to get a reaction out of me, and it's like, well, you're a terrible mother. It's like, yeah, I am. Yep, sure. Cool, no worries. Yeah. You know, it's like, when you're 26, come back and tell me, oh, my God, I can't believe you did everything you did for me, you know, like getting up at 4:30 this morning to drive him to work.
Classic.
You know, like, so it's like, I'm sure one day it'll all come back and, you know, he will appreciate that. But, yeah, it's all growth. But I'm very aware, I think. I'm just not, I think, at that space of making that next step yet.
Yeah.
And it's fine. I'm completely fine with that. But, yeah, I have a lot of people saying to me, when are you going to do your art?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's coming, you know.
Just know that post this going up, you're going to have people coming to you with all sorts of opinions and direction. Because, you know, that part of doing this properly is being vulnerable, which you've done very well.
But I think it matters to me less now.
That's what I was going to ask. So you said before, I forget exactly what you said, like, I'm not enough, or up until you were 50. What's the mantra that's replaced that, do you think?
Well, I am enough. I'm more than enough. You know, I look back at the things that I've achieved in my life and I go, well, you know, I've done a good job.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing a good job. And nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
So, and I think I was after, you know, somebody's approval that I may have never got. And then I've realised that when I turned 50, well, you're never going to get that approval. So why is it an issue to you? So, you know, like, so, and again, are you going to spend the next half of your life still chasing something that, you know, you've already reached? So, I think the parenting thing has been a big thing for me, because being a sole parent, it's like you want to make sure that, you know, like quite often I'll say to my husband, am I doing a good job? You know, like, you know, what am I doing here? Give me a hand, you know, please, like, you know, and then something will happen. I'll go, thank you, you know, like, because, it's hard when you don't have someone else that's responsible for those two kids to help you out, you know, like, I will sometimes talk to him, and say, you know, like, come on, pull your finger out, you know, give me a bit of a hand here on what I'm doing. I'm not sure I'm doing it right. But it seems to have, you know, worked out in the end.
Yeah.
So, and I spent too long, and if, you know, your listeners are listening, I spent too long worrying about what everybody else was thinking of me. Like, that seemed to be my whole mantra in life.
Yeah.
Work too hard, you know, doing too much for somebody's approval who's not even looking.
Yeah.
You know, who doesn't even care. Or that one person that makes that one negative comment to you, and you hold on to that when you've got 50 other people saying you're amazing.
Yeah,
you
who
know,
are praising you behind your back, and you never hear that.
Oh, that's another thing too. Yeah. You don't even realise, like, as I said, when my girlfriend went, oh my God, I can't believe you know, and I just went, oh, what, really? Oh, wow, here I am looking up to these amazing women as parents. And then, you know, and I must say, those amazing parents still had the same issues with their teenage kids as I did.
Of course.
And also, when you surrounded by people who, maybe their children, were straight A students at school, or they were ducks, or whatever it might be, and then later on, as they're getting out, and maybe their path wasn't the path that their parents maybe thought was going to be the path for them.
Yeah.
And you were made to feel bad because of what your kids were doing at the time, So, I think something happens to women, at that age, where they start to care less about what other people think.
Yeah.
It's no longer such a big part of their lives. That's what I'm happy that I've got to that point. I'm not saying that it's completely there, but it is less of an issue to me.
Oh, yeah, you can breathe, right?
Oh, yeah. It's like, well, why do I care what you think about me? It's none of my business, like that's that, the saying that everyone keeps saying. So it still will affect me, but not to the extent where I felt it destroying me before.
Yeah, it's funny, that as someone who lives quite digitally public, I'm constantly posting, and obviously I'm getting pretty vulnerable for 2 hours at a time on these every week, and there's thousands of hours you can sit down and listen to and figure out my whole personality if you want to.
Yeah.
There is a lot of obviously I'm doing this because I fucking care. I care about what people think. I'm trying to project this. I'm trying to optimize me so that people can be impressed by me or whatever it is, fighting that other version of Jake all the time where it's part of me does this for my kids to listen to one day. Part of me does this because I'm trying to learn. Part of me does this because how else would I get to sit down with you 2 hours uninterrupted and ask you deep questions? I can't. And I get to do it with leaders, industry leaders,
well, we
business
don't
owners.
always do it as well. I know that when my grandmother was passing, and she asked me to fly to Queensland to see her before she passed, and I spent a week with her, and she was telling me all about her, early 20s. I'm like, I never knew any of this stuff.
Yeah, because when do you learn that?
And I sat there, she was in her lounge chair, and I sat there just deeply engrossed in getting to know this woman that had been a part of my life my whole life, and yet I didn't know all these aspects of her. So, it's good to – I mean, I'm quite an open person, so, I mean, a lot of my friends know everything about me. I don't shy away from anything. And I think that I attract the same sort of people.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky. I've had friends for, 30 years that, if I need them in the middle of the night, they'd drop everything. In fact, they have when my kids were young and I need to go to hospital in the middle of the night. I had friends just drop everything, no matter what was going on in their lives, to turn up.
Yeah.
So I know that I've been very lucky because I don't have a large family. So I've been very lucky in my friends.
Yeah, having a good circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not surface people,
Yeah, I think the going back a couple sentences, it's interesting the concept of worrying about what people think about you. I always go back to my mentors and the people that I look up to.
Yeah.
None of them have anything that would actually hurt my feelings to say about me.
True.
I've had mentors, people who are doing better than me never want to see me do worse. People that are doing better than me want to pull me up.
I've actually had some friends who've, I'm in the depths of this terrible situation that's going on in my life. And I've got a couple of friends that come to mind who've just said it to me straight. And I've gone, and that you're being put in your place in some ways, but that where it comes from.
Yeah.
And they're like,
criticism.
I'm feeling this. Is like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, yep, because you're coming from a perspective where you know me to my core, and you're going to give me a different perspective right now that you think I need.
Yeah.
And so I've had some, home truths sort of given to me by some friends that, you wouldn't be able to say it to me.
Yeah.
But those people, because I know they love me.
Yeah,
you know, so, and you listen, you go, okay, and because you also value them.
Yeah.
A lot.
I'm having literal moments that I'm thinking of where mates have been like, so you're doing this, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably a bad idea, eh?
Yeah, and I quite often get friends go, oh, do you think, you should be? And I'm like, yeah, I'm actually really aware of that.
Yeah.
And it is part of the plan. And I'm also, I don't know, because, I've lost people, as you get older, you tend to lose people, and every time you do, it makes you kind of look at your own mortality, and it does scare me that my plan for myself is over there. It's coming. It's like, and will I get to that point, or have I just spent my whole life giving to everybody else and then not having that time for myself?
Yeah.
But I also believe in that manifestation state, and right now I'm in a place where I'm needed still with my kids, and financially you can't just go, okay, I'm gonna I know I went to one of those talks once. A student actually bought me tickets, or had a spare ticket and took me along to Anthony Griselka. Have you ever heard of him?
Oh yes, the name resonates.
Well, he's known as the Ghost Whisperer. Anyway, I went to one of his seminars, and right at the end, I was sitting right up the back. And he said, "Oh, got any questions?" I said, "Oh, what do you see for me? What do you see happening for me?" And he said, "Oh, I see you painting in a villa or something in Tuscany, or something in Italy, And I'm like, oh, I actually want to go to Italy, and I want to paint. And so I've been like, and that was like eventually. Like, that's what I see for you, when you're older. So I've actually kind of always held on to that as a nice little, I think that's what I'll be doing, when I retire, or maybe even when long service comes up.
Yeah. Foreshadowing thought.
Yeah, and not knowing that I was creative, and I was someone out the back was quite interesting. But so I took that and I went, yeah, I'll take that, and,
Yeah, how interesting. Would you say you're religious?
No, I'm spiritual.
Yeah.
So I definitely believe that there's something elsewhere, and I've had experiences where I feel, connection. Yeah. So, I believe there's more. That's for sure. In fact, I watched this program, some American talk show host who had lost her husband, and he was young. He would have been in his 40s, and had someone come on, and she said what he said changed her life. And I've said it to people because I actually belong to a widow group. A friend of mine lost her partner. She started up this Facebook group a number of years ago, and she's actually gone on to win awards, and Rural Women of the Year, and really interesting person. Yep. But she was more of an acquaintance than a friend when she lost her partner. And I reached out to her the morning of the funeral and just said, look, I'm thinking of you. And she messaged me back immediately and said, only you could understand what I'm feeling right now. Yep. And I said, I'm here if you need it. So she came and had a chat with me, and she said, I don't know any young widows. So she started this young widows group, and I think there's 1,000 or something on the Facebook group now. Wow. And she's also now created like a grief connect situation as well for younger people that are widowed. But I had shared this on the group because she needed another person to start the page. So I was an admin person. Yeah. I didn't, I wasn't really involved in any of it, but I would often in the early days make comments and, listen to people because it's just a space to go, I'm overwhelmed. Yeah. This is what's going on. But this thing that I had seen, I had shared on this post because they talked about the whole thing of when you're a baby and you're in the womb, and just say you got twins and they're talking to one another, and they're it's the twin says to the other one, do you believe in the mother? And they go, oh, I don't know, I've never seen the mother. I think I feel the mother. I think I hear the mother, but I've never seen the mother. I don't believe there's anything out there because that's all they know. And there's an inch between where they are in the womb and the other side.
Yeah.
And this person said, so what if we are in the womb now?
Yeah.
And there's another side, and everybody else is on that other side just waiting for us to come into that space.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really beautiful in terms of we don't know, what else there is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am spiritual, and I do believe that there is something else out there that is waiting for us for the next stage.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant answer. I think like my imagination immediately goes to like what an analogy. And if that's the case, like what happens when you get to the other side and you're having that moment of like watching everything from start to finish?
Yeah.
for me, it's like I want to make sure that I'm proud that I took every risk that I could, because I see this experience as more of a game than like this hardcore cemented thing that we've got to get right. I think we're meant to get most of it wrong. I think the idea is we're meant to continuously fail until we find success. And success isn't money or wealth or abundance. Success is figuring out what it's all about.
Well, for me, it's all about connection and love. So, yes, all those other things, play out. But I think if I could get to the end, my success would be what impact have I had on other people?
Yeah.
And, I've taught hundreds, thousands maybe of students over 26 years, and there will be some that still say you made an impact. And like we came back to me saying, Steve bullied at Bridgetown High School in Year 10 made an impact on me, and he truly did. Yeah. If I was able to make that impact on my friends or my children or my students, then maybe that's my part.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough also to have met my soulmate, like that, that he said something to me after he met me and it really resonated. He said that he felt he was floating around in this thing called life until he met me, and then he felt like he was home.
Wow.
And so there's that grounding of when you connect with another person to that really deep level. And I've had that with friends as well, where you just know that they've got your back.
Yeah.
So, we're getting a bit deep, but for me, I guess if I got to the end and people can say that, they had that really deep connection with me, then that's, that's a good thing. So
there's probably a lesson there for me, because I'm essentially where you were at when you had kids, and I'm about to have kids, and I have like all the information that I have is only based off the experience that I've had. You know? And then you've then got this whole other lifetime of experience that then you're going like, hey, that's cool, but maybe focus on this.
It's also my experience.
Yeah, of course.
It's your experience is going to be completely different. I've had a few friends that have lost children and have made that comment, you would understand. And I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
My experience of grief and loss is through losing my lifetime partner, my soulmate. I can't imagine what it would be like to lose a child. And again, losing a parent is different again too. And also, your loss of a parent might be different to my loss of as a parent. So it's all relative, So your experience having children is going to be your experience.
Yeah.
So you can, I've tried to get advice off people. I sat with a book called Baby Love next to me, this fat, because I was like, oh, my baby's got a rash. What does that mean? Oh, my baby just coughed. What does that mean? Because we really don't know. And your parents can come along and say, oh, you're doing that wrong, but you can only do what you can do with your child, and you will be the only person that knows what's right for your child.
Yeah. So, of course. Yeah. And I think this is a very logical way of looking at things. You have less of a chance of having a successful business than you do having a healthy child. And so I look at it as like, we're year 5. We've defied the odds. We'll probably be fine raising it. Obviously we're scared. Like when you boil down what the emotion is right now, like we hope she comes and she's healthy.
Yeah.
We hope she has, the foundations, and we hope we can provide. We hope we can be the people she needs. We hope we can make the right decisions. We hope we can get the timing right. We hope all these things because we're scared we're going to fail, right?
Yeah, well, you've only got yourself to look after before children come along.
Yeah.
When I had my daughter, she was, I think, 2 months old when the tsunami happened, the big tsunami, the Thailand and we'd only just been there actually. We had just stayed at it was a year before, but we had stayed at Koh Phi Phi where the whole island was destroyed, and we'd only just been there. And my daughter was 2 months old, and I remember when it happened, just kind of like holding my child, feeling so vulnerable, like I'm responsible for this child, and what happens if, a tsunami comes here, it's just with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, you think, well, what am I bringing a child into? But again, you just have to take it day by day.
Yeah.
And you might have, like I always say, I'm actually visiting a friend tomorrow who's just had a baby. And, of course, this friend is just the most beautiful friend, and I feel like everything kind of, you know, comes and lands in her lap because of what she puts out, I think. But I sent her a message the day that her son was due saying, I hope all goes well today, you know. And she's like, oh, yes, he came this morning. I'm like, of course he came on his due date.
Yeah, yeah.
And, oh, it's an hour and a half. Yes, of course it was only an hour and a half, you know. But it was kind of, I wouldn't say this, although she'll probably hear this now, but nobody gets a free ride.
Yeah.
You know, you have a blissful, beautiful birth, you'll have a terrible 2-year-old, or if you have a really easy child that sleeps through the night,
be a balance.
the teenager's going to kill you.
Yeah.
You know, like I look at my friends know this because, oh my God, my daughter is a 13-year-old. I nearly didn't survive it.
Okay.
She's 21 now and she's extraordinary. She cleans the house, she cooks the dinner, she does the online shopping.
Yeah.
She's studying at the moment. She's amazing, you know, and I think, wow, you know, like here I was thinking, you know, my parenting, you know, like, oh, you know, and also, you know, I don't recommend working at the school where your kids go because that was one of the hardest times of my life, you know, because I was, you know, too easy to be accessed by teachers to say, you know, your son didn't do his homework, or your son answered back, or your daughter didn't,
there should be
whatever,
a healthy disconnect there.
Yeah. I allowed that, mind you, to start with, but then it did become quite difficult. And I'm a terrible parent. Every time something was said to me, I'm a terrible parent. I'm a terrible parent.
As in that internal monologue.
Oh, yeah. No, not, you know, it's the way that I felt.
Yeah.
And I guess I wouldn't allow that now in my own head. But it was funny because I remember being in a situation where I had a counsellor come into the school to be kind of like a mediator, and he just said to, you know, I think there was a deputy at the time, you've got this parent who works at the school and she's easily accessed for, you know, when a child wears the wrong socks, or, you know, what it's like to go to Bunbury Catholic College. You wear the wrong socks, didn't do their homework, forgot their sports thing again. Whatever it was too easy for just a teacher just to reach out and go, hey, Kirstie, you know, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, 5 times in a day I might have different teachers just kind of thinking they're just saying something little small, but it ended up being, you know, a huge thing. And he said, and yet other parents, the teachers aren't going to reach out to them and send them messages every day saying blah, 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 blah. They're going to only reach out when it's a real concern about something.
Yep.
So he said, and it was important to me because it was like, so you've got this, you know, staff member here who's got an over-exaggeration of what her kids are like in the school. So I was like, oh, yeah, right, okay, because I took every little comment to heart.
Yeah, of course. Creating awareness of that is nuts, by the way. Being able to say, hey, like you realize that you probably feel like, you know, you're beating a dead horse here and you're like, yeah, I'm dead. You know, can you please just fucking relax?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I remember one day it just came to a point where, you know, I was literally, I never go to get a cup of coffee in the morning. I thought, oh, I'm going over to get a coffee. And literally straight away somebody was at me going, oh, we've had a situation. We think, you know, your child is involved, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. He goes, oh, I'll come and talk to you later. Okay. And then I've moved on to something else has said, it was like 5 times, like different situations. And then finally that person came back to me and said, oh, we realised it wasn't actually your child. It was actually someone else. But when he came in to tell me, I was in tears because I'd already reached my point in the office, and I'm like, not a good time. And he went, oh, no, I just want to let you know it wasn't your kid. And I just went, you know, my head of department came in and went, she said, do you need to go? And I said, you know what? I think I do.
Yeah.
And then I sort of went, I can't have this anymore because this is my workspace. And like I said, the biggest struggle that I've had in business, in teaching, in everything has been my parenting because it's only me.
Yeah.
You know, so when you got a team, you can kind of go, you
bounce.
deal with it.
Yeah,
I'm going for a walk around the block to cool off.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you've got that team. But I was the one having to make all the decisions, and were those decisions right? So, yeah, again, really lucky that I had a good support team with my friends that allowed me to ring up and, you know, bawl my eyes out and fall apart and That happens less these days, mind you.
Yeah. That's a good progression. I'm assuming.
I guess because my children are growing up, but I think also because I kind of go, I'm actually doing the best I can. So, Yeah,
this is it. This is the best. I think that's probably what I was more leaning to before with my version of like feeling I'm squeezing as much juice as taking as many risks is I gave it my best shot.
Yeah.
Like this marathon that I ran last weekend, like I didn't do what I wanted to do ideally, but I finished it. And that's what I set out to do. I gave it my absolute best. And if I didn't give it my absolute best and didn't achieve the goal, I'd be like, well, that sort of sucks. But I gave it my best.
You're just about to go into the biggest marathon of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
don't word it like that because I hated that marathon on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I have one last question for you. How do you perceive your own imagination?
How do I perceive it?
Would you like me to start with how I perceive mine?
Sure.
So I originally thought that my imagination was like a TV screen that just appeared in my mind with pictures and moving pictures and voices and words and colours, and I would respond to it. Whereas now I see my imagination as more of an antenna that connects to an infinite intelligence that the more I dial into it, the more it dials into me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a huge question.
It's an easy question to finish off with, hey?
Yeah. I definitely see pictures because not everybody sees pictures either. Some people, like I heard somebody say the other day that they don't hear that internal monologue. Some people don't have that. Yeah, I think I don't know whether I connect to – I think I connect to my surroundings and my environment through imagery. I don't think I go as far as where you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you get to not have the conversation we're having, but you get to experience what we're talking about with so many different versions of imaginations with young people and with mature people. And I sort of just lean into like, oh, that must give you the capacity to broaden the spectrum of your imagination because you get to experience all these different versions of imagination that you get like a average or a consolidation of what that is.
I don't know whether you need space in your head to have imagination. And I think that I'm constantly drawn by external things that require my time, that it's more of a thought process and a giving process to someone else than being in my own imagination of, although I am all for manifesting at the moment. Yeah. So I guess that's part of imagination. I'm imagining what I want moving forward, and that's huge at the moment. Like I want to eventually downsize my house and move. Yeah. And I'm like, but where do I move? I can visualize the house where I'm going to move to. I can visualize my life and the things that I want, but where is it going to be? So just recently a block came on the market a couple of days ago actually, and I showed it to my daughter and she went, oh my God, that's the block, and I was like, yeah, but it's the wrong time because I'm 5-6 years off that. Yeah. It's the wrong time. And she said, yeah, but that's the block. And I said, yeah, it's pretty much. And so my mother-in-law and my daughter are like, you've got to make this happen. And I went, yeah, but my logical side is like, I'm in this environment, I don't want to put myself into more debt and it's going to be stressful and it's not the time. But it's given me another image in my head of, okay, this is what I might be looking for. And when I'm ready, that is going to come. That is going to be there for when I'm ready. Yeah. So,
And this may even be a step in that process of going like, now I understand a little bit better what that is. Because I think the manifesting thing, like my easiest example of that is like one day I'm going to own a Porsche. It's like it's my thing, and it's like the pure thing where it's not for anything but me. It's because I want it.
Yep.
And when I think about that Porsche and when I manifest it, when I visualize it, and I don't like visualize manifest. I don't like those words because I feel like they've been they've been overused, right? Yep. But I think like for the sake of this, it's visualizing, it's manifesting. I don't think about the color or the the model. I don't think about I think about the leather top of the gear stick, the smell of the petrol in the cab.
Yeah. So you're making it a reality. It's
real
coming to you.
It's real. It's like a visceral thing.
Well, building my house was the same. When I was 16, I walked into a rammed earth house in Bridgetown, and I was like, oh, this is my house. This is what I want.
Yeah.
And I was so obsessed with that. That's what I made happen. Yeah. I designed my house and I built my house, and that's the house I still live in.
Yeah.
And the only reason I would think about leaving is because now it's a big house.
Yep.
Although I don't know how long my kids will be home for, but it's that whole thing of, well, maybe there's maybe this has served its purpose, and maybe, I need to start visualizing that next place that I'm going to.
That's stick with me here. We're doing a full circle now. I love it when podcasts do this. That's a long form of flow state. The beginning of that flow state is the visualization. And then those little moments where it's like, oh, obviously it's by the ocean. Obviously my bedroom window faces east. Obviously, those obvious moments of flow state where it's like, it's not like you had to think about it. It was there and you're like, yes, tick, that's it. I don't have to think about it. That's it.
Well, before I met my husband, I wrote the list. This is what I want. Okay. It was really quite interesting, because I ended up doing a whole, clean of my bedroom, wash the walls, do a whole what I want to bring into my life. And I bought this sculpture beside my bed of two people just completely hugging each other, like in an embrace, And I was like, this is what I want. And then I wrote down all the things that I wanted from that person, and then he just appeared.
Yeah.
So I and everything, like as I said before, I'm a list writer. Everything I've put in place, these are all the things that I want in my life. They have all come to me. I just maybe wasn't specific about how long I wanted my soulmate to stay.
Yeah.
Because I met him, and people will often say to me, oh my God, that's the most awful thing that you've lost, the love of your life. And I said, yeah, but I had 10 years of bliss. Yeah. Some people never get what I had. I just feel for my children that they didn't get to know their dad.
Yeah.
But for me, I had that. Now, talking before about my grandmother, she had said that she'd never been in love. And I went, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, she married because back then it was you get a provider and, all that kind of thing. And I said, but how can you get to the end of your life and have never been in love? And I also thought, well, what about your children? But she had never felt that love in her whole life.
Yeah.
And I've had that. So, yeah, it's you manifest, you want those things, you bring them in. I think you can also bring in negativity if you overthink, because I think I've also been good at doing that too. But yeah, it's all about love and connection, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right as well. That, I think about how successful my family and my life and my business is, and then I stop worrying. I let it come to me.
Yep.
I expect it. And when it shows up, I'm not like, whoa, I'm like, cool, you're on time. Maybe a little late, so next time it comes a bit quicker. Yeah, it's that magnetism of thought and understanding that's what I'm saying about that antenna, that imagination. I think the holding cell of what you see that gets delivered to you, that's the TV.
Yeah.
But being able to go all right, this is a two-way street. I'm the physical experience of the human life. This whole shit is being projected probably to someone watching us laughing because we're making all the ridiculous moves. But the idea is going here's what I want. Here's the order that I want it in. I'm going to wait for it to show up. And if it doesn't show up, I'm going to assume that's part of the process of me getting to it. So I'm not going to be mad that it's late. I'm not going to be mad that it didn't turn out how I wanted. And then you start going into the whole I asked God or the creator for this and I got the absolute opposite. It's because the creator is preparing you for the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could just go on a million different tangents. Look, I think you're a beautiful, powerful, creative woman. Thank you for coming on the podcast and being so vulnerable with me. I really enjoyed this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's so good. Anyway, be good to your mum because we are out.